Welcome to what may be my last update of annual conference. I'm going to tell you what we did this morning and then tell you what we're going to do this afternoon after we head into ordination and come out of that. Usually everybody just runs out. So we've had a great time being here in Baltimore. The Hilton Baltimore, where we have been meeting, is right next to Camden Yards, where the Minnesota Twins have been playing. Though unfortunately for my husband, who's from Minnesota, our conference schedule has completely prevented attending the games. But we've over the past couple of days gotten to see fireworks and crowds. So I hope that even if you've been in the convention hall, you've gotten to enjoy a little bit of the festivities from inside. Maybe you've even gotten to go outside as you've gotten food. So this morning, we worked through the business that was on the schedule, including our stewardship reports. We have one more that we didn't get to before lunch. And so after lunch, we'll be receiving the motions from the trustees. Of note in that, there are a few closed church motions that we'll be receiving. And so that's the last bit that we need to care for amongst those closed church pieces. We did receive pieces from equitable compensation, setting minimum full-time compensation numbers. I'll come back to that. That's the thing that we had discussion about. Otherwise, we heard a very brief, it's actually the shortest West Path Compass presentation. I told my husband that information we heard going into general conference was long. It was more condensed at clergy session, and it was very brief as we were moving through, but there's a great presentation. So grateful to West Path and all the information that they provide. Again, as I mentioned in an earlier video, to learn more about West Path and the new Compass retirement plan, just Google West Path Compass. It'll pull up, go to the West Path website, the conference website, and watch for emails that will be coming out. We received those. We received, so all of the motions from pension and health really that have to do with just standing motions that we have to make, that we do every year. Things like approving that clergy retirees can use their pension amount for housing expenses in the same way that clergy can file housing allowance, those things that just need to be filed for IRS purposes. So a lot of those, as Carl Akemal, the chair of that, a lot of those perfunctory. So we moved through those. The thing that did get discussion this morning was around the recommendation from equitable compensation. And in particular, we did hear generally some sharing, and Bishop Easterling addressed this at the close of our discussion and work on that report. Really the challenge that of balancing equitable compensation for clergy, having compensation amounts that not only support our clergy, but to be honest, this wasn't named in the morning, but really present ministry as a viable professional career for folks, balancing that with the realities in local churches. And how do we make sure we're caring for those folks who dedicate their lives to serve and honor the ministry in local churches in ways that allow funds and room and budgets for mission and ministry, and also recognize that for some churches working in cooperative ministry where they're not having to carry the entire load of a clergy compensation package may be a path forward. So that discussion will continue to go on, and Bishop Easterling raised that. We had, and so I think we had some important discussion and lots of discussion to continue. On a practical perspective, the piece that got conversation is one that really has not been part of the equitable compensation report for a couple of years, and that's the professional reimbursement account. A year or two ago, it was brought to annual conference that has not been raised. I've been in ministry. This is my 20th anniversary of serving in ministry. Started my first appointment middle of June. It was started early in 2005, so I celebrate 20 years. And the professional reimbursement has not increased in that time. I think when I started, it was separated out that professional reimbursement was $3,600, continuing ed was $500. That's where we get the 4,100 number. It was eventually combined for just all of the things. And that number hasn't increased, even as other amounts have. That's been something that we've been trying to raise. And equitable, I think the question was, whose responsibility is that? So that was given to equitable compensation. So they really inherited a conversation that had kind of been hanging out there. And so in the end, after discussion and an amendment, and yes, an amendment to the amendment that I made, and I promise I had somebody say, that must have been on your bingo card. I have no bingo card, but if somebody had one, you got an amendment to an amendment. Where we settled was the equitable compensation had recommended no change to the 4,100 number. An amendment had been made to either set that to 6,000 or 10%. And then the amendment to that was to just say 10%. Hopefully that will help us moving forward, one, to continue to float that amount. If other amounts are going up, we know, for example, that professional reimbursement as set by the IRS standard, and that's what most folks use for reimbursement, that amount will float with salary. That would be, if we really can do that so that we have that number being as flexible as our other numbers and not having to be evaluated every year, but that it's proportionate. I think that would be a help. That is in the end what the body voted this year. It would mean that we would for next year, 2026, the current amount of 4,100, if to what we approved to float it to 10%, ends up being 5,600 and change. So that is a jump. That'll be the largest single jump. And our practice has been that is proportionate to appointment. That generally the expectation is if the amount's 4,100, if you're a quarter time appointment, then 1,025 is generally what we look at. A lot of churches do that, do more than that. And not all clergy use their full amount. There was some question, I think, that we'd had at connectional table. It didn't really come out in the discussion today I really appreciate that our finance folks had looked at what's the differences across the districts. And one of the questions that wasn't asked, we ended up going with a 10%, is even the numbers that say that our average is below or just above 4,100, is whether those numbers accounted for differences in percentage. So because our standard has been, if you're 25%, it'd be 1,025. So when they're taking the average of what is professional reimbursement, are they averaging a church at a 1,025 the same as a full-time church at 4,100? So those would have been some numbers if we needed to dig into it more. But what we settled with was 10%. Again, we worked through all of those stewardship reports. We have only the trustees related items, and then we'll be celebrating appointments and working through closing business as we move to the end of our business session. Again, we start at 1:30. I think that we're meant to go till about 3. And then we have ordination at 4 p.m. So we've got to end on time because we need to reset everything, get ready for ordination. Clergy need to robe. I'm excited to celebrate. I know you are those getting commissioned and ordained. Make sure you're watching on the live stream. If you're home, it's going to be, I'm sure, a powerful service. And final note, because again, I probably won't update again. You can follow the updates through the hashtag BWCUMC25. I'll post maybe some text updates on the final business. Thank you for following during annual conference. I'm hoping to lean into more, being even more active with videos and on social media now coming out of annual conference, not just stopping because conference is over. So thank you for watching these videos if you've been following along. I've got a new blog, www.sarahschlickert.com. There are a few posts up. I'll continue to post there. Link to my YouTube and Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm still trying to get closed captioning. It works on Facebook. Thank you for following both there. And also, so I've got Facebook, my Reverend Sarah Schlickert professional account, sarahschlickert.com, and Instagram as well at Rev Sarah Schlickert. So thank you for being part of this conversation. I look forward to continuing the conversation as we share in our new work together in our new districts with our new hubs.